Okay, everyone, I'd like you to bring you to order and we get started on our Service Delivery Committee meeting. Thank you. Yeah, because it's 9 o'clock. Thank you. Yeah. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Service Delivery Committee meeting for the new Trainerum. I'm sort of challenged to make myself heard. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm in the chair for the first time for this committee, and so I'll seek your indulgence as I get up to speed with the role. And we've been used to Graham Webber chairing this committee for a long time, and those are big shoes for me to fill. Yeah, and I'd just like to acknowledge Graham's long contribution, to this. But please don't expect me to match him with his jokes and humour. Okay. So, anyway, with that, we'll move on to the first item, which is apologies. And I've already received apologies for Philip Coles, Mike Pettit, Takina Sterling, and Liz Stolwick. Thank you, Roger and Lou's seconding. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Disclosure of members' interests. Any interest to disclose? Great, thank you. Any late items? Great, thanks, Claire. And could we have confirmation of the order of the meeting? Andrew's going to move and Bruce is going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And so now we're on to our first report for the meeting, which is water services, and welcome Martin Mould to the hot seat. Welcome, Martin. Good to see you here. And yeah, give you the floor.
Good morning, Chair, councillors. Of course, this is the Water Services Activity Report up to the 31st of October 2022, and just going to just go through that first things of particular note and then take the report as read from there. The drinking water quality assurance rules came into effect on the 14th of November. And we have submitted a suite of water safety documentation and have completed the required installation of additional online monitor equipment to meet the requirements, which is good. And again, for the full compliance for the period for this report, we've got full compliance to the drinking water quality assurance rules. Work has started on our rural flood hazard mapping project. If you remember our urban one we did last year, this is the rural version of that. And one other item on there, which is the Cambridge wastewater treatment plant, the resource consent. We plan to lodge that on the 19th of December, which has been a significant 2-year lot of work. So we're really happy to get that in before Christmas.
That's exciting.
And then happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, Marcus.
Hey, man. What's happening at the Kiki Domain with Speedway and the water discharge and bits and pieces? Like, are we helping them with that in the RDA, or what's happening there?
Cool. It's a long story. I'll try and keep short. So we were served an abatement notice from the regional council for the stormwater discharge from the Kiki Domain into a local stream, and one of the major contributing essence of that was runoff from the Speedway. So the Speedway are putting in a new treatment device to treat the runoff at their cost. So they're funding all of the works required there, and now they've stopped any sediment runoff into the stream. We may still be getting some sediment contamination into the stream, and the next source of contamination would be from the rodeo arena. So we just started looking at that.
Are we providing any assistance with those groups, like helping them with whatever remedial works need to be done?
So we reviewed the Speedway's solution, and so we've helped in that essence. And we only just identified recently of the rodeo, so we'll arrange meetings with them and help them through that process again. But it won't be a funding assistance; it'll be a technical assistance.
Susan, yes.
Oh, look at
There
that.
you
We
go.
have the technology. Perfect. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, Martin, or actually one question and one comment. The question relates to the flood mapping that we're doing in rural areas. Do you have any idea when that may start and finish, that work?
So that will take the whole year.
The whole year?
So probably 11 months work. Yeah.
Okay. I see you're only doing flood prone areas, so that'll be interesting to see what you unearth there. And the other comment is in respect of Mainoki. I attended the Waikato Business Chamber Awards, and Mainoki cleaned up in a couple of the categories, or one of the categories, and we went and talked to Phil Holland afterwards, and he had nothing but wonderful things to say about our waters team, saying how easy we were to deal with and quick to respond to their requests and for information. So I thought that was really neat to hear. Really cool project, by the way. I think that's something we could do a lot of, get a bit of mileage out of it. So it's a great story.
Definitely.
So great work.
Okay.
Lou? Yeah.
There we go. Just a couple of quick questions, Martin. Certainly, the hydrocyclones that you're putting in to take away the grit, is that actually going to be operational by the holiday period or not? Because it would save you having to change and clean your membranes all the time. I'm just intrigued to see that they're going it.
Yeah.
Great thing. Just how far away are they?
Fingers crossed we're commissioning them this week.
That'd be a big positive for the.
It will certainly help.
Client.
Yep.
Yeah. Great.
Any other questions? That's good. I've got a question, Martin, about the comment about what's happening in Pirongia with the stormwater swales. It's on page 8 of the report, or just lost it actually. Page 14 of our agenda. It says that we've commenced a process of identification of roadside swales and culverts in Pirongia, and this is to do with that CSWDC needing green infrastructure management. Can you give me a bit more detail about that, because it is of quite interest to people in Pirongia Village?
So the comprehensive stormwater discharge consent, which is what CSWDC stands for. So we've got our application in for that, and we will need to treat the water a lot better once we've got that consent. So we've been looking at the swales in Pirongia to see how could we enhance them to do better treatment. So what planting could we do, or whatever. So it's not about piping them or anything. It's about enhancing their ability to treat stormwater.
Oh, that's great. Any chance of some of your staff, once they've worked on that, to maybe come out to a community association meeting or something at Pirongia and just let the public residents know what's being planned and things?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, excellent.
So it's still very early investigations at the moment. Once we've got more of a roadmap. Certainly.
Yeah. Excellent. No, thank you. Bruce.
Martin, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping committees, but in Andrew's committee, Finance and Corporate, this afternoon, there's mention about the old water, parallel road water treatment plant and the new one. What's it going to be called? Is it going to be drop the new and just say it's a parallel water treatment plant?
We've dropped the new, I think, but yeah.
Okay, no, that's good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. No more questions? Great. Good discussion. So I've got a recommendation on page 7 that the Service Delivery Committee receives the report of Martin Mould for the Manager Water Services. Driver mover, thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Roger. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Martin. And now we're up for transportation, and Brian Hudson has just walked into the room. Perfect timing, Brian. Gosh. Great start. So we're just moving into the transportation activity report. So I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We can take the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee have.
Thank you. I'm Bruce.
Easy one to start, Brian. What's the difference between chip seal surface and an asphalt surface?
Right, that's a good question. Chip seal is sprayed bitumen and then they drop the stones onto it and roll it in, whereas asphalt like we have in Alexandra Street here, comes, really mixed out of the back of a truck into a paving machine and laid out in a layer normally 30 to 40 mils thick. So asphalt's used in those high stress areas around roundabouts and main streets where there's lots of parking activity, and in some industrial areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's several times more expensive than chip seal.
That's right. About $40 a square metre for asphalt and about $5 or $6 a square metre for chip seal.
Thank you. Roger, do you have a question?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. Thank you. I was just making sure it wasn't mentioned elsewhere on the agenda. But Brian, walking and cycling, obviously some fantastic news that was released yesterday at 10.4 million from government. But I just have a question regarding that. That's coming from the government direct to us. We've got our own budget to add to that. But it mentioned in the press release that we were going to have to go back and talk to Waka Kotahi. And I'm just wondering if you could background the reason why we need to go back to Waka Kotahi and talk to them when they're not controlling this money.
Right, a good question. So actually there was just a webinar this morning before I arrived here that was just finishing up with Waka Kotahi. So they've got 46 councils across the country, and some of them are at a very early stage in their walking and cycling sort of development. So those councils will probably need a lot more help with implementation and planning and everything. And for Waipa, Waka Kotahi acknowledged that we're certainly a long way down the track with our planning, but there's still some steps that they want us to take. So there's a funding agreement that we have to sign up with them, which is normal for any funding that comes to us outside of the normal National Land Transport Fund. So there's a funding agreement with the objectives and goals and timeframes and the like. Then there's some reporting back at different phases where once we've got our scheme design that we have to pass it in front of them. So what they're also trying to do is share the good examples across the country with other councils. So Waipa is nominated as one of those flagship projects because of the experience we already have. Yep. And they want to be able to share the experiences from Waipa, the designs and the successes with other councils to, well, I guess, show them how it's done, perhaps.
So that begs, again, the question, are we still going to be in control of our own destiny, if you like, with that funding? And there's no possibility that they can actually impact, affect, delay, or any other action that's going to deteriorate, diminish our effectiveness of that project?
I'm pretty optimistic that they'll we'll sign up that funding agreement and we'll get stuck in. Thus, everybody's going to be under pressure in terms of wanting to achieve results quickly. So certainly Waka Kotahi don't want to put any roadblocks in the way. So yeah, I'm optimistic that it will be a smooth process.
Okay. I do have another question, but I see that Mike has a question, so I'll let.
Yeah, okay. So Mike, yeah, we'll give you a rest.
Thanks, Brian. Not sure if this question's directed at the right person, or maybe it's SPMP, so correct me if I'm wrong. I noticed that the Tesla are coming to the Cambridge Community Board tomorrow night to sort of canvass their proposal for a big supercharger station. And it's much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And it immediately got me thinking, this is going to be a really big question coming very soon. And I haven't got a whole lot of guidance that I'm tell me what the plan is, or do we need one?
Right. So I guess Tesla have been asking council and I believe private landowners in Cambridge for the last 12 months looking for a location for a charging station. So their equipment tends to be bigger than other EV charging companies. So I guess we've looked and their representative from Australia came over and had a look around Cambridge as well. But we've looked for places that are possible, I guess, where parking is sort of on the fringes of the town and in much lower demand. So we did suggest a number of different sites to them. But ultimately, you know, they've got to see whether it's viable for them, and they've got to ask the community, and hence the question to the community board around whether the community would see that as a suitable location. So I know we also did have some discussions with the Chamber of Commerce too, and asked them if they thought there was a suitable place in Cambridge, or if there were any chamber property owners who would be interested in having something like that on their site. I think more and more these types of charging facilities are in demand. Certainly there's a lot more electric vehicles on the road and people travelling, and they want to be able to stop at regular intervals on a trip and charge. And the fast chargers take sort of about 20 minutes to give them enough charge to go the extra leg. So Cambridge does seem like a good location for one of these chargers, being, you know, close to State Highway 1. But you're right, it could potentially be controversial in terms of probably no matter where it would go in Cambridge, there would be somebody who would say, well, we'd rather not have it near us. But it's, yeah, I guess a discussion for the community and the community board to think about.
Yeah.
Just a comment probably to my fellow councillors as much as anything. Like, to me, it's going to become quite a sort of big thing where these charges go. It fits in with Cambridge Connections, Ahuaki, both of them, but it's going to come quite fast. Like when you see the scale of this Tesla thing, you go, you know, it's much bigger than I thought. So I don't think we should be doing it piecemeal either. We sort of need a bit of a plan, but I don't exactly know how to advance that. So.
Yeah, there is some planning work going on at a regional level. So all of the councils in the Waikato region joining with the Waikato Regional Council to come up with some rules. So I guess not so much rules, but guidance as to how do we get best value out of these types of facilities, and how do we try and standardise where they end up. It's interesting, there is some pushback in the community, people saying, oh, I don't own an electric car, you're going to take up a space which you know, I can't use because I drive a petrol car, or parking's in demand, therefore we shouldn't have parking spaces that are just for vehicles that are charging. But the plan is that by I think 2035, 30% of all vehicles will be electric. And yes, some people will, a lot of people will charge at home, but a lot of people will want to charge when they travel as well. So we're going to have this uncomfortable transition phase where I think people will be saying, oh, no electric vehicle charging stations near me, it might affect my business. Whereas on the other hand, people coming to do business will want a place to plug in. So
yeah, and I'd just like to make a few comments here. Like, I've been attending those regional meetings about electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and perhaps that could be shared with you, Mike, about those principles. Yeah. Oh, you got it. Yeah. But just for clarification, in the end, it's Tesla's decision, isn't it? Because I mean, they've obviously, you know, been in touch with council and they're talking to the community board and the Chamber of Commerce, but in the end they actually secure the site themselves. Is that correct?
It's very much a council decision. In terms of it is on public land. And so we would give them a license to occupy, as we've done with other charging companies. And hence why that, you know, placement is a question to go to the community board and people like Chamber of Commerce and others and say, well, what do you think of this? Because no matter where we put them, it's going to affect somebody. Somebody's going to say, well, I'd rather have ordinary car parking here. Thank you very much. So, yeah, hence touch base with the community and try and get the best accord we can.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Happy with that? Mike?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Roger again then.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Brian, the first one is a comment. The second one is a question. The first comment I'd like to make is well done on the bridge painting and repair, and the fact that we've maintained that two-way traffic at all times. And it was really interesting that we didn't get the high level of traffic that has been traditional with field days. So field days was not as much of an impact on town traffic as it has been in the past. So I think those two combined factors, so pass on the good work to the contractors in enabling it to be kept up. The other matter is from what I hear, the reopening of the recycling station in Cambridge has been further delayed, not an event of council, but of a private company. Can you give us any update on that? Because it's going to, again, create considerable noise in the Cambridge community that we still aren't going to get that recycling station.
Right. I guess I don't have much more information than what you have, and that the company has said that their repairs and maintenance work on the station have taken longer to complete than what they'd planned. So I think it was just my staff corresponding with their manager, and the response coming back saying, well, it's likely to be in the new year. So we don't have more information than that at the moment.
But there's still the intent,
correct,
to open it in the new year. This is not a delaying tactic.
That's my understanding, yes.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Bruce.
Thank you, Brian. I'm just in regard to Nanapuri Road and what the Waka Kotahi, what percentage of that are they paying? It was their bridge that caused, then it's quite extensive damage, really. The trucks. How does that pan
out? So far we've invoiced them for $100,000, which was the temporary repairs and our contractor's time during the detour, and we've scheduled up repairs of around another $180,000, but there is, because some reasonable lengths of pavement have been badly damaged, potholed and cracked and everything and rutted. Instead of just doing some small repairs and then having a real patchwork of repairs on those pieces of road, we would rather add a layer of metal and do it full width so that we get a robust repair that will last longer. And so to do that is about $300,000 worth in total. So we're having discussions with them. We've sent them all the information and they're asking them for their feedback and confirmation that they're going to fund that before we start the contractors on those repairs.
Lou.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just quietly asking about CTE extensions. Are we considering with this the ones that are privately owned that are currently actually linked to the police station? Because there's been quite a number of additions just in the last few months, all the ram raids and everything that are going on. And I just wondered whether, when we're doing this design work, that we incorporate what is already existing, because I think that would interlink and assist us to where we're placing our cameras as a council.
Right. I do see the email sort of batting around about that. And so what I will do is have my staff member go and see and find out what is available there in terms of the private cameras. But I guess the only limitation with private cameras is that we'll never be in control of them. We won't be recording anything that's showing on them, and whether that's recorded on a hard drive in the shop or into some other cloud-based storage system. So we won't have the ability to go back and look at that footage and retrieve footage and things without probably going to that private company or having to change our security system in some way to suck in data from a different source. So there's some technical hurdles to get over, and we just have to examine as to whether those limitations of using a private camera are worth the saving of not putting up our own camera, as it were.
It's just, sorry, just with the thought that there were some of the CTV cameras are actually currently privately owned, but linked into the police station.
Yes,
So
yeah.
they are actually being monitored or partially monitored at that time. So that's why I'm just raising the question whether we're actually considering those when we're having our placements.
Yeah.
Well,
Certainly a lot of the new cameras are automatic number plate recognition cameras too, which of course the private cameras won't be.
Susan? Oh, okay, Marcus, go.
Just further on with the CCTV, Brian, and with my Wi-Fi Networks hat on, have like council approached Wi-Fi Networks and Tuatahi Fibre about sponsoring fibre power connections and stuff for running the CCTVs? Like, why are we actually buying full-priced fibre connections and paying power? Like, we actually talked to Tuatahi and Wi-Fi Networks to actually do a thing that benefits the community, because I know Wi-Fi Networks is going to engage more with community projects and things.
Yeah. So certainly we do talk with Wi-Fi Networks because obviously we've got to get power from them, and we work and have always worked, quite closely with them for this sort of thing. Yes, we can ask Tuatahi about fibre connections and whether they can give us some discount or not, but I guess the actual fibre connection cost, the equipment and hooking up is only a fraction of the cost of the long term, and that comes down to the broadband, market or supplier after that, which is Vocus.
I do a lot of work with Vocus and stuff, and have we actually talked to them with our community hat on, like we're providing the service to protect our communities and stuff like that? It's not like a good win for Vocus and stuff like that, and Tuatahi, because Tuatahi provide the fibre network. Vocus is at their bill on at the end. Like, there's some way that we could be working this better to actually get better support from these companies.
Well, we can ask the questions, but I guess at the end of the day, government is probably a really big client of Vocus, and probably a lot of our data and everything is going through them every day. So I'd have to ask the question of the IT crowd to see whether, that's something that we can do.
Yeah, because this is a community project that's benefiting the communities and these big companies. I think it should be logical that we approach them and ask for, or have some discussions with them to reduce costs, because the costs seem outrageous in the papers that we're paying for broadband connections and stuff for these cameras, which is, I think is ludicrous what we're paying. The price is massive. And there must be some way to trim that down and work with them.
I guess it's different to a home connection in that you've got quite different equipment and little weatherproof boxes up on poles and things like that. So,
Could I just clarify on that? Like, is that part of all the government sort of procurement, the broadband services? Or do you know that?
I don't know that. No,
it would be worth exploring, because every community that's trying to protect themselves from RAN raids, putting in more CCTV and stuff like that, and whether or not it's something that central government could actually be looking at, a blanket package or something would be also worth having worth exploring. But I don't know who would be the best to take that forward. Susan, would you have any ideas with that? No. Gary might
specifically.
Sally might, yeah.
If I can, through the chair, I think there are really good points that have both been raised around how we can look at potentially some community or some business support for the community on that side. So leave that with us, and I think we'll follow up and ask the questions that you've raised to see if there are opportunities and what leverage we can gain in that space. So thank you for those points.
Just further to that, I did have a discussion a few days ago with Will Loughran, Western Waikato District Commander, and he'd indicated that he'd heard that the government funding the dollar for dollar scheme, the crime prevention measures, including CCTV, had been extended to all government authorities. It was sort of a whisper through the grapevine. So there has been a request of staff to try and investigate whether that is actually available. whether they've expanded it to smaller localities
That would
such
be,
as ours. So
Mm.
we're there is work in the background to see whether we can attract greater assistance and through that funding.
okay, so I'll leave that with you then, Sally, because I mean, if we could reduce those operating costs, yeah, that would be, yeah, really beneficial. Excellent, thank you. Brian, I was just going to ask you about the pavement rehabilitation for Te Pahu Road. I have heard that there's logging trucks that are using that road that probably aren't supposed to be. Have you received a message about that?
Yeah, I have. There seems to be a lot of rumours maybe circulating in the community about this, people seeing logging trucks on the road. So the only restriction we've put on it is the bridge restrictions that we have already in terms of the bridge at the south end, limited to class 1 vehicles. So a fully laden logging truck wouldn't be able to cross that bridge, but unladen, they'll be fine. So if they're coming in from the south, picking up logs somewhere in Te Pahu area and travelling through, they'd have to go out fully loaded to the north onto State Highway 23. But otherwise, there's no restrictions that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah, okay, no, thanks a lot. Well, yes, Susan.
Just quickly, Brian, our two favourite subjects, the Punu Road remediation. Do you have a date when that may start?
I don't know, sorry, but we were hoping to have the asphalt applied before Christmas to make it nice and smooth and to remove that sort of loose stones and sticky tar situation that we have there now. So if we can, we'll still try and achieve that. Okay.
And the second stretch, obviously Waka Kotahi Control Road, but Sloane Street, you'll obviously be aware they undertook one portion of it and due to equipment failure had to decamp and come back again. They missed the actual corner though. It's quite bizarre.
Yes.
Oh, it's just quite bizarre.
So it's done last night, was it?
Oh, have they done it now?
Yeah.
Why did that take them 3 attempts? But, I mean, I can accept the equipment failure, but I mean, that corner was only a small stretch and it was arguably some of the worst of that road. So it defies logic, knowing as a farmer what it costs to bring equipment onto your farm with transport and what have you. It seemed to be a wildly inefficient way of addressing a stretch of road, and I appreciate it's Waka Kotahi, so there's not much we can do in that space. But couple of other, just the one other thing was in terms of the waste minimisation report, obviously Mike and Claire and Alana and I took part in the hazardous waste collection day, which is obviously quite historical now, really good uptake, and I see there's quite an overwhelming response and the feedback to conduct these annually. Are we committing to do that?
I don't know the answer to that question. Sally is behind us there. Do we know?
We probably will do between 12 months or 18 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's in there, what WME.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure whether, Sally. Very sneaky. And the other question was in respect of that part of your report on page 12, which is 29 of our agenda, the top 10 subcategories. It's sort of a bit difficult to understand what some of the complaints are all relating to. The pie chart, some of the abbreviations mean that the chart is somewhat purposeless. So I wonder if in the future we can get a better way of understanding where the breakdown of those complaints relate to.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the Power BI software. You can clip an image out, but it doesn't always come with all of the information.
Yeah, it didn't carry the descriptions. So
yeah, we'll see if we can.
Although we can see Seal Road or a good quarter, and the other quarter is illegally dumped rubbish, one would assume it's a bit of a mystery as to what the other half are.
Yeah, so at the top you've got potholes on the and then illegally dumped rubbish, missing or damaged signs, obviously street lights not working, obstructions to footpaths. It will be possible for us to produce a better graph in the future.
Cool, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's the labels. Yeah, the full label would be the helpful thing, or even if it was in a legend at the side or something. Yeah, but I appreciate that there's limitations with these software packages. All right, so any more questions?
Once again, waste mobilisation, just wondering just exactly where we're at this present point in time with the food waste curbside collection, whether we're developing that or how we're progressing. With a new executive in place here, I felt that we perhaps could have a bit of an update on how that's proceeding.
Actually, there's another paper in the agenda on.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's probably
How far has it progressed to date? Is it?
So we're creating a business case for it so that it can go
Right.
forward into the next long-term plan.
Right.
Because it is such a significant activity and rates impact and things like that, it has to go through that LTP and public consultation. But
Perhaps
I
we
guess
could,
we're
yeah, perhaps we could
perhaps
leave it
we
for
just
the
sideline
later
that.
agenda. Yeah. I know that's right. I know that you're keen on it. Andrew.
Thanks, Claire. Brian, going back to road stuff, State Highway 39, do we have any data on the traffic movements now that the expressway, the Hamilton section's open, and what that's going to mean for us in terms of it becoming a local road again, etc.?
right. No, at the moment, we don't have any data. So although Waka Kotahi do have some counters out on these roads that are, I presume, counting full time, they haven't shared with us that information yet. Although I think we've got another meeting with them coming up before Christmas. So we've certainly asked a couple of times, as soon as you've got some information, share it with us. But they haven't done that yet. And I think they're probably a bit reluctant to make any statements, because of the work that was still going on at the end of State Highway 1 and on State Highway 21. And also a number of the directional signage, for State Highway 3 and the airport road and everything hasn't actually been installed yet. So there's, potential for people who are travelling to Auckland, if they're just following the signs, they'll stay on State Highway 3 and go around the west side of Hamilton instead of using the new road. But for us as a council, the bulk of our traffic counting is done in sort of the period February, March, April each year, so that we're counting at the same time every year. So then we'll have, by sort of May, we'll have a full suite of data for our roads, and we'll be able to see what the changes have been.
Cool. All right, thank you. And we'll close the questions now. And thank you, Brian, for the report, comprehensive report. And I have a recommendation on page 18 that the Service Delivery Committee receives the report of Brian Hudson for the Transportation Activity Report. Andrew moving and Roger seconding. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And I think that you're staying in the seat, aren't you, Brian, for our next item, which is the Cambridge Connections project. And welcome Rachel Elgar as well. Great to see you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, if we can take the report as read and take any questions from the committee.
Roger.
Not a question, but just a comment. Being part of that Cambridge Connections Committee and actually having attended as much as I could the 3 sessions, I did play hooky for an hour on one, but I'd just like to say, to my mind, the interaction that we've had regarding where we've got to and the identification of the problems that encompass all of the issues that have been developed, I think is a tremendous start to that project. So well done, guys. And I think, I'm really looking forward to the next stage when we start to identify 1 or 2 of the solutions. So really happy with the way things are. So well done.
Thanks, Roger. And well, I'm also on that group, and I endorse what Roger says. I think the process that's being followed is really robust and really encouraging. Any feedback you'd like to share from those stakeholder or drop-in sessions that were held recently in Cambridge? It'd be great to just get an overview of how that went and what feedback you got.
Okay, I can probably answer that. Thanks.
Just press again.
The light needs to be on, so push it again.
Oh. Thanks, Brian. So we had 3 information sessions last week. Well received on Wednesday, and a range of stakeholders were invited to those sessions. we got a varied range of people attending, from the Department of Conservation to the Ministry of Housing to councillors, community board members, Bike Waikato. So yeah, and there was a range of responses. I guess it was drawing on also that the project stakeholder group had, we had an ILM workshop, which is basically identifying issues and benefits from that. And people were able to see the current issues that the stakeholder group had identified and to say, well, yes, I agree with these, or I'd like to add these ones as well. So, and there are a range of issues from things such as congestion, growth, accessibility, climate change response, road safety. So at the moment, we're just pulling that all together, and we'll share that. We'll share that with the stakeholders and the stakeholder group as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Yeah, it's critical work that's been done and really pleasing to see it progressing. So no questions further. So I've got a recommendation on page 32 that the Service Delivery Committee receives the report of Rachel Elgar project update for the Cambridge Connections. Happy to move it. Thank you, Roger. And Marcus is going to second. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And the next item is the draft waste minimisation plan on page 40. Welcome, Sally, as well. You're joining Brian.
Good morning, everybody. So we'll I'll do the same, try and take it as read and just answer any questions or queries or anything that you'd like to talk about before we can see if we could take this to the public in the first half of 2023.
Okay. Lou, do you want to ask that question that you had before?
Yeah, what I was going to ask about is curbside collections, but I wanted to actually add something here, that we have a very good model operating in our district at the moment with e-waste collection. Okay, where we're using local Rotary clubs, okay, to do the collections, and it's actually becoming quite a positive thing. Can we look at that kind of model in these sort of collections where we actually revert that waste into compost or something, it becomes a saleable product, and utilise the community and have it so that it's operating perhaps in our premises, but use that public model to see how it operates, because I do know that e-waste has become far more profitable in the last few months as we get the volume and the scale, and it's getting together so we can reduce our charges quite significantly now. Admittedly, we had to charge to start with, but that is operating. Just a question.
I think that's something that we'd probably look at in the contracting phase, but it is a significant contract with some really key deliverables, because you can't have food waste just sitting out there. You know, we've had some service issues, so it's, you know, about purchasing trucks, getting trucks manufactured, you know, hiring drivers, health, and it's a real next level thing. So most contracts of that level, of that type, would just go out for tender. So, you know, within the work that we did, that we presented from Eunomia, there was the discussion about composting locally. So that could be something where the community could maybe work in that part of it, but it would depend on which service we decided to go with. So yeah, like Brian said, currently bringing all that Eunomia information down into a new long-term plan business case, so we can put that forward and then progress it. But it's also in the waste minimisation and management plan. It's something we're hoping to indicate to the community, so we can get some indication that they are keen to have a curbside food waste service as well. So yeah.
Perhaps just to develop that a little bit more, I wasn't actually looking at the collection side, I was actually looking at the actual composting side and being able to retail that or get it out through the community. But as I say, the collection, I can see the logistics problem of that, and you'd probably have to contract that out definitely to have that operate correctly.
Yeah, so I think the volumes would be the big thing, because it'll be at a huge amount of stuff. So I have been up to see the Hampton Downs process where Hamilton's is going, and I've been to the anaerobic digester in Leparoa. So there is a lot of quality control and stuff that has to go on there, and you have to also be sure of the market. So that's sometimes one of the benefits of having a contract is we say, once you pick it up, that's your market to deliver. to find the market and provide the tonnages of compost to them. So yeah, so hear what you're saying, keen to see some community involvement, but it'll be something that we'll see how we can work through. Yeah, see what's possible maybe.
Okay, Roger.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Really pleased, all actions focusing on food waste, and number 7 there, encouraging home composting and support community composting initiatives. Is there a way, do you think, that we could support, either by a small subsidy or by bulk purchasing, a home composting unit that we can encourage residents to actually go? Because I think that's a great way for people to take, you know, responsibility for their own disposal. And I'm not too sure how much we'd have to discount them by, but I'm sure that it would be an attractive option for some households to take a composting unit, if you'd thought in that direction.
Yes, I think if we get some good support for that in the waste minimisation management plan consultation, I think a good first step would be asking the community, what are the barriers? So is the barrier the cost to buy it, or is the barrier knowledge to compost, or is the barrier physical ability to turn the compost? So maybe we could do, yeah, and there are some other barriers there. So yeah, so pests, worries about pests is what comes up regularly in other surveys that I've seen. So I think maybe that would be my first step, is maybe to to do a little bit more work around what would create a behaviour change or a habit change at home, because we don't want to just give people a compost bin and then they don't know how to use it, or they use it for 2 months and give up. But yeah, we could definitely look into whether a subsidy is going to trigger some behaviour change. But yeah, I'd probably do that little bit of research first. Yep.
I'd just like to add, just to that point, I watched a video about from the Climate Connect event, Sally, where someone said they lived in Raglan and they did their own home composting, but what they eventually moved to was like a shared composting arrangement with just a number of households. Mm-hmm. And that seemed to be quite manageable, you know, because you've got one person that's already, or a household that's already knows how to do it, and others sort of join in, and then it's a slightly larger scale. Anyway, just a thought. Now, I had some people over this side. I think, Susan, you were first, and then Bruce.
Through you, Madam Chair. Look, once again, Sally, a great report, awesome work, so much information in there, really, and I'll go over it and fine-tooth comb probably at a later date, but just a fantastic information. Really interesting, some of the calculations you've proposed there in terms of the potential rubbish collection, introduction of a rubbish collection, and how it has potential to offset the concerns around contamination of our recycling. It's sort of, is there a proven link between the two, or is it just?
We hear it from our contractor all the time that in other areas where they provide, where there's a council provided rates funded rubbish service, that they have less contamination. Fantastic. Yeah, so that's a bit anecdotal. Okay. So
kind of makes sense though, right?
It does make sense. Yeah. But I do think one thing we definitely want to bring through into this rubbish service conversation is making sure that we maybe do consider an element of user pays, so that and then that kind of does take away a little bit of the benefit, because they will be paying per time they put it out. Yeah. But yeah, having it so definitely some possibilities there to look into, and it'd be exciting to see what it could provide for the community in the way of service, but also possible in cost savings for them. Yeah, so it sort of ticks a lot of boxes, right? That there's that conundrum around rubbish and that issue addressing the potential contamination. And just the other thing on page 57, you've highlighted some really good practices in terms of local outfits undertaking steps or changing their way that they function in order to move to a more cyclical economy. Another one is APL. They've done a great deal of work in that space, Profile Group. They've done some exceptional work. So just wanted to do a little bit of a shout out for them in that regard. So great report as is always, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the community think about some of the things you proposed, particularly the rubbish bit. Yeah, it'll be very interesting. Yeah, so with APL, I'm aware of the amazing work that they did on their big build. They did a green building hosted an event there and I went along to that, and we also involved them in a project that Hamilton kind of led, but I also connected Naylor Love up as well. They've done a series of videos for the industry, the big construction industry, about ways to think about waste and reduce waste. So APL and Foster's, because that was their partnership there. Yeah. So they're great that they're just in our area. So great leaders for us.
They've done some fabulous stuff around packaging and minimisation here in terms of migrating from plastic to paper and things like that. So
really switched on.
Very, very forward thinking. So awesome. Well done. Look forward to hearing what people have to say. Bruce.
Hi, Sally. Just two questions. The first one, is there any consistency in numbering of products? Is that up to the manufacturer? Some of them you need a research degree to find the numbers, and I'm convinced a lot of them it's just dump. I can't be bothered just because you can't find it. But if they're all bigger, that'd be great. So
I feel you with it as a glasses wearer, yes. So that is kind of in the Ministry for the Environment's court. I mean, I'm like rubbing it like, what is that? You know, it's ridiculous. I mean, it should just be way bigger. So the ministry is doing a lot of work in that space. So they've already phased out plastics 3 and 6, which are starting to get phased out. So all the meat trays are no fluffy polystyrene meat trays, no 3 meat trays. So all meat trays will now be clear ones. So they're doing that, and they want to do the phase out first, and then they are going to be looking at the what are they calling it? Labeling, pretty much labeling, because you sometimes have something where the outside is cardboard and the inside is plastic, so you have to have the information on both. And so there's a couple of different models that they have been looking at. So yeah, that's more in the ministry's court, but I have been constantly reminding them during consultations, like, yes, make it bigger, make it clearer, make it easier for people to understand what is the correct place for that piece of that item to go, rubbish, recycling, or special recycling.
And the second one, and I just agree on page 52, you've got here in Waipa, visitors and new residents will know what can and can't be recycled because it will be consistent across New Zealand. And I disagree with that only because TCD don't take fires, we do. Is that going to get right? Because people say, oh, I know people said to me, what can I put in? I said, well, I don't know. We're going to do a bit more research in different councils.
Yeah, so again, that's in the ministry's court. So they consulted on that earlier this year, and we, in our consultation back to them, said, yes, please, just make it simple, make it nationwide, make every single recycling bin, what you can put in it, the same and the same condition. So we were meant to hear by the end of this year, but it's clearly not. It's going to be next year.
Oh, you're on to
so
it.
it will be interesting. Yeah.
Any other questions? That's cool. I've just got a couple of things, Sally. One is about the whole waste pie, I think, which is, what page is that? Page 12 of your report, or page 61. Because I'm really concerned that it doesn't address those people that do a lot of their on-site or even behaviour changes to reduce their own waste, or recycle at home, reuse and things like that. Because, as you get, because that's the behaviour you are wanting to see happen. And over time, hopefully there'll be a smaller waste stream, so, we have a danger if we don't take account of it somehow, we might fail to reach some of our targets, because we've got residents who are really on to minimising the amount of waste they're actually having to put into that waste stream. Have you got any ways that could be taken account of in some way?
So I think the whole waste pie that I talk about is more nationwide data, but then on the page before we've got our household rubbish. So we do average that out. So, it is a much smaller sample, but it is very counted exactly, and it's very precise. So there will be some who are super high and super low, but we do have that data, and there's not that many clear, unfortunately, that are super low, but I can dig out that information from our last 2021. I mean, there will be a very small percentage who are amazing. And then there's a chunk who are doing really, really well. And then there's the majority who are in quite part of this bell curve, which hits us around 10 kgs of waste every time they put stuff out on the curbside. So sometimes I feel like the people who are doing so great, they're already our leaders. So I'm not focusing on that too. I'm kind of trying to focus on the top of that bell curve to bring them down a bit. So that's kind of, but we still want to keep encouraging our leaders. And so hopefully we can learn from those and, maybe do community information, so get those local leaders to actually tell their neighbours how they're managing to do it, instead of me trying to tell them all the time.
So really what you're saying is that you're using that metric of the household rubbish to demonstrate perhaps that over time it will reduce to a much lower level, which shows that our households are being really responsible and innovative with reducing.
Yeah, so this is our second solid waste audit. We've already booked in for our third one, which will be in June next year. And so, you know, we haven't seen a downward trend yet per household, but we haven't seen it go up either, which is good.
Yeah.
So over time, you know, behaviour change does take a long time. But, you know, so we do need the government to do better on their policy settings and stuff like that, so we can actually help our community to do more. But for example, if we do get this food waste collection through the LTP process, a third of that stuff has the potential to come out. That will be a huge change to that number, you know, the volumes going from our district to landfill.
Yeah, excellent. And then the other question I had, or comment, I guess, was on page 18, which deals with those construction materials. And I felt it would be good to mention in the report, where is that? I guess it's the proposed actions to improve construction and demolition waste diversion. Yeah, just above the 19 point. Because you've mentioned in other presentations that Waipa misses out on those really big recycling centres like that Auckland has the benefit of, where building waste and construction waste can go there and it can be repurposed and things like that. And I think we need to have in our plan that Waipa wants access to that kind of infrastructure as well, maybe a regional facility but closer to Waipa or something.
Yeah.
I've
got an action 20, advocate to the government for equitable regional access to government funded diversion infrastructure. So that's that.
Yes, I guess what I'm wanting to see is a little bit of an explanation about that in the paragraph above to justify it, to show why it's so important.
So we can maybe give some examples of recent funding that they've given and that is totally out of range for us. Like no one's driving construction waste to Auckland. Well, very few people do.
Well, that's right. Because I mean, I'm familiar with it because I've heard your presentations before, but someone reading your plan for the first time might not be aware of it. Yeah, excellent. But yeah, fantastic work. So no other questions? Cool. All right. So we'll have the resolution then, which is quite lengthy, isn't it? So it's on page 40. I don't really want to have to read it out, but is there someone that's willing to move it in its entirety? Thank you. Okay, so I've got Bruce moving and Lou seconding. Thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Great.
Yay, thank you.
Excellent. Fantastic work. Yeah, keep it up, Sally. That's great, really great. Okay. All right. Okay, and that's next. Yeah. All right, so our next item is the John Hewitt Drive renaming, and I've got Aidan and Bonnie coming to the hot seats. Welcome. Welcome, great to see you here. And take it away. Thank you for this item about the renaming of the John Hewitt Drive. I'd also like to acknowledge that there's members of the public here, I understand, who've got an interest in this item. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, good to see you here. Thank you. I don't know, is it Aidan that's going to start or Bonnie?
Yeah, I'll just briefly start. Thank you. Since it's Bonnie and my first time being at the committee, we thought we'd just introduce ourselves. So my name's Aidan Kirkby-McLeod and I'm the Reserves Planning Team Leader. I sit in that position on covering Hannah Dyfall, who's on maternity leave. And Bonnie Lewis has started as our Reserves Planner as well quite recently. So I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, kia ora. Today, we need to present a community application for Katrina Sunfoot Drive. Sunfoot Drive is the access way to one part. They will show the Sunfoot Drive, they chose well to recognise the contribution of late 4 years of work they in 2019, the group
you. Any questions? No. Oh, yes, Roger. And then.
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this seems to have been going on for a wee while, doesn't it? And I've read the documentation here, and it seems that now there's no obvious dispute within the paper about the renaming to Hiwi. I see that your recommendation is that it goes out for a further round of consultation. My question is that really necessary? And I'd really like to hear your view on that, because, you know, for us to take 3 years to talk about a road name change just seems to be going on for a little bit too long. So your comment on that?
Yeah, sure. I guess we're here today to kind of seek your guidance of whether you think there is enough evidence to support a change now, or whether you think that we could do with more consultation. I guess our reasoning was, you know, with our significance and engagement policy, it kind of is on that edge of whether we do need more consultation or not. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at here.
Mike, I think you'd like to say something about this.
Yeah, following on from Roger's point, which was mine as well. But what would the consultation look like, do you think? How extensive would you be recommending?
So just to follow on from what Bonnie was saying, the material that we've reviewed and prepared the report today is just based on the material that's been received by the community members that have been advocating for the name change. So I guess we don't know whether there are wider interested parties, particularly we know Ngāti Hawa have interest in the area, part of the Rohi, and we haven't received any kind of information as to their views on the proposed renaming. In terms of what that public consultation might look like, initial thoughts would be just a public notice to elicit any further views that may be out there about the proposed renaming over I suppose the typical kind of period of 4 weeks, I think, is what the consultation goes out for, receiving any further views and then making a recommendation as to how to proceed based on any further community views of the proposal.
I think that's a good question, and I think if we can set a time.
Oh, excuse me, Roger, could you just press that button?
I thought I had. My finger must have slipped. Sorry. If that's the time frame you're talking about, and if that's the methodology that you're talking about, advert in the paper, give it a time frame, and then a decision to be made, because I think there's got to be an extent to the time that we spend. So yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Oh, so we know. I'm sorry, but you've just extended that time frame. May, January, February, March, April, May. You're talking about 6 months. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I don't think that's necessary. I mean, if you're going to put an advert in, put it in now, a couple of weeks, and then make a decision, because it can't go on forever.
Yeah, if I can, through the chair, appreciate the feedback that's been received around the consultation timeframe. I think what the team are identifying here is that we very much heard from some members of the community. We just want to check off with if there is any other thoughts, and also that does go to the wider Hewitt family, provides them an opportunity, and other mana whenua partners. So we can look at those timeframes. It's always a challenge at this time of year putting something out. Do I say the dreaded Christmas is coming up and people's minds are on other things? So we can look at what that time frame is in the new year to shorten that, and also the time frame around agenda items to come back to the committee potentially earlier than what we've outlined as well. So I appreciate your thoughts, and we'll try and speed that up as much as we can.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Well, I do have a question from Susan.
Just to follow on from there, I can understand that, but if we could make a minuted deadline that it comes back with a proposal to the next Service Delivery Committee meeting next year.
I don't know who else supports that. I'd just like to hear what Susan says and then put it to the wider group as well.
Thank you, Claire. So I'm just trying to understand, is our significance and engagement policy triggered? And if so, what was our comms team's suggestion on how it's handled? Because it does strike me, according to what both Councillor Gordon and Montgomery have said, that this matter's dragged on for an awfully long time. So what did we get a determination on whether our significance and engagement policy was triggered and therefore needing to undertake yet another round of consultation in a very drenched consultation market, let's be fair, about something that seems to be quite well known through the community and pretty well supported? And noting also that the Maungatautari Marae Committee have given strong support for the proposed name.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess this is an interesting one. Being an access way, it's a little bit different from a public road, or it's different from renaming the reserve. So that's a kind of a question we were battling with as well, was whether that was triggered or not. And kind of seeking, yeah.
If I could just elaborate a bit more. So in terms of the time frame that's been taken for this, we made a conscious decision as staff about 12 months ago to park this because we just didn't have the staff resource to undertake it. So there has been a conscious decision just to focus on other priorities. It wasn't part of our work program. So that's some of the reason for the delay to date. In terms of the significance and engagement policy, as Bonnie said, it is right on that cusp because of its informality as a formal road. However, we've taken guidance from Graham Pollard, who drafted the naming policy. And as this is one of the first names, well, it is the first name to go through in this under the new policy, we thought we would go through the proper process of this and acknowledge that, we might come back in the new year. We'll be undertaking that as soon as we hit the ground running in the new year. So that'll be late January, early February. That means we won't be able to come back to this service delivery in February, but certainly by March, we'll be hopefully be able to bring something back to you by then.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate that. Yeah, were you going to say something else?
So my
Susan?
second part of the question was, did we talk to our comms team about this?
We've met with our comms team in the last week in preparation for going out to consultation in the new year. So we've come up with a plan for that.
So you have spoken?
Yes.
I'm kind of prepared to throw caution to the wind a little bit on this one, and I don't get the feeling that there's a need to go out to public consultation. It's so broadly known. It seems to be dragging on something that has so much community support. I'm not sure about whether people around the table are prepared to address that issue or not.
Marcus, if you want to say something.
Yeah, I probably agree with Susan's comments because it's not a public road as such, and I think yes, it's a really good idea to test the policy and go through the procedure to do it, but perhaps this is not the right road to do that on.
Yeah,
because let's just do it.
I'd support Mayor Susan's suggestion.
Bruce, were you going to say something?
A little bit off track with this. I do respect Sam Hewitt's and what the staff have put in the paper about that. This shouldn't proceed unless John is recognised somewhere else. And you just don't put a name up without putting him in the rubbish tin as such. Knowing the man himself from previous experiences, I don't think he'd be happy. So I think if we could, there's no alternative at the moment, but I think in the future, hopefully there is in a more appropriate place, possibly.
Okay, I was feeling that it was a good idea to go out for public consultation myself, because I'm not convinced that it is that broadly known that there have been interested parties who've been pretty active, but I do feel there was a bit of concern from the Hewitt family that if the name change went ahead, there was nothing in place to recognise John Hewitt anywhere else. And some way, by having that broader conversation, a solution might present itself, for a way forward in that respect. Even though it isn't a public road, it's a well-known right of way or private road. So I did feel it warranted that extra level of consultation. Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to be in the position where the change happened and suddenly other people were upset about that it just went through and they weren't aware of what was happening. I'd like to see a bit more than simply a notice in the paper. I think you mentioned that there would be a bit of engagement with stakeholders like the Hewitt family and the Mana Whenua partners separately to that notice, but whether or not other communications, like for instance on Facebook or something, that you're reaching out to a broader section of the community, I'd certainly be in favour of that approach as well. Yes, Susan.
Through you, Claire. I just, surely those issues in terms of renaming another, or naming rather another appropriate stretch of road after John Hewitt, those assurances could be given directly to the family. And I mean, I'm not sure that we need to undertake a full public consultation in order to square them away. It just seems to be a reasonably long-winded and cumbersome way of squaring away potentially a known group that would need to, you know, have some communication with. And my understanding is that there had been some discussion, even at an informal level, about assuring there would be an appropriate roadway to bear that name in due course. But I would be loath to embark on a course of community consultation in order to address what could be something that could be addressed in, you know, offline, especially when, as I say, that it's been going on for quite some time. There's clearly an understanding in the district that this is a supported change.
Madam Chair, then regarding your concern about the Hewitt family, if I'm reading the agenda correctly, there was an agenda item on the 18th of June 2019 that actually already discussed the change of the name from John Hewitt Drive. So that has already gone through the committee and been approved. So that is no longer an issue with regards to this question that we have in front of us now. That's already been decided, and that we're now really deciding on what the new name should be. That's the purpose of this agenda item. So I don't think that the Hewitt family consideration, that's already been addressed with that previous agenda minute.
Yeah, I think I saw a more recent email from the Hewitt family that led me to believe that it'd actually be good to treat them a bit more sensitively. That's all. But I mean, it's going to be a decision of this committee. Yeah. So, yes, Andrew.
Through you, could I just ask staff whether the local levy Mana Whenua was on, you know, where are they in this in terms of being consulted?
Yeah, so Maungatautari Marae has given strong support for the Te Iwi name. We haven't gone out to Ngāti Hawa or Raukawa at this stage, but Maungatautari Marae is in support.
So in that case, can I suggest that we proceed and have a look at the recommendation to change it
to simply go ahead with the change, but not well. So you're happy not to have Mana Whenua with Ngāti Hawa and Raukawa consulted with?
The local marae has been, yeah, you know, I'm comfortable with that.
Thanks, Andrea. My understanding with Mana Whenua is there's overlapping interests often. So even though a local marae would have a lot of weight, that it would still be good practice to also check in with those other Mana Whenua groups. Can you give me some guidance there, Sally?
If I can through the chair, yes, there are overlapping interests. However, in terms of the discussion that I'm hearing from the committee this morning is that there's concerns on time. There is also the local marae of Mangatautari Marae who has strongly supported the name that's present. And there is, I suppose, concerns about going out and consulting this. So as highlighted within the report, that in terms of significance and engagement, it is identified as low. So it is the committee's direction, if you would like to propose with renaming, simply straight to renaming of John Hewitt Drive. However, you may want to consider whether or not it's a resolution or a note that we also provide a discussion with the Hewitt family and some assurances there that we will look at where the name will go in terms of another location. So those are the considerations that are in front of you at the moment, and I suppose it's your direction that the team are seeking on whether it's consultation or whether it's simply straight to the renaming, and hearing both of those around the table.
So
sorry, Claire, but thank you. Can I just clarify that the Marae questions in favour of the name change as proposed? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is get an idea that the going ahead with the name change without the consultation, is supported by the committee. And then I thought I could get some assistance from Joe Greed for wording of a new recommendation. Marcus, is that what you would?
Yeah, I was going to say I'd like to move that we go ahead with the name change without the consultation, but with talks to the family.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah. So it looks like we've definitely got majority, if not unanimous, support for that. So I was just wondering if I could call on Jo if she could have a go at rewording that.
Shall I jump in just as an idea now? I'm not sure if Jo's around. So she is there. I can't see her. Oh, there we go. Okay. There she is. I won't jump in for Jo. I'll let Jo be Jo.
No, thanks for the discussion. It's great that we can reach consensus on that and hopefully have a good community outcome. Yeah, and I'm sure Jo's very good at rewording the recommendation so we get it right. And
I think it's important we do this. And I just looked back, I've been reading through, we've actually discussed this at the service committee back in 2019. It went to the community board, Cambridge Community Board, so it's gone through there. Now, I think we've done the actual hard work and everybody's there. It's a name that was originally selected by the previous residents. So, it's got a historical side from the people that live there. And it's also got it from local iwi. And the name means the ridge, as I understand it. So I think that that's quite appropriate just to take this action.
Just while we're waiting, as a point of interest, does this committee have the power to change the name, or does it have to go to council? So this is only a recommendation to council, has it?
Yeah. Will we be able to get that up on the big
Mike, actually, it won't come into our agenda next week because that's already been dealt with. So it'll probably be the first one next year. Sorry, ladies.
So we're going to go over time a little bit now.
Yeah, so then what I would
we're doing so well.
It's just
so yeah. Okay, Jo, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm just going to check it out. So you're going to break now.
Can you break that just adjourn and then we'll come back and pass the recommendation?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll just check whether it's a council or service delivery committee that
Yeah.
better to be sure about that.
Yes, yeah,
So
okay.
if you break now. we'll
Okay,
get-
all right. Okay, so I've had a word from our resident expert that we should actually adjourn at the moment. So we get the wording of the resolution absolutely right and watertight. So, yeah, so let's have a break for 10 minutes. And so, yeah, so come back around about 10:30. Okay, thank you.